Welcome to another Evo 101 video where I answer all your Evo questions. If you have a question you want me to answer in a future video, please comment below and I will do it. Today, as a follow-up to our last video, we're going to do the Evo X Special Edition. So in the last video, we did the Evo IX Special Edition. Now we're going to do the 10. It was a 4-year hiatus for a Special Edition. The Evo X came out in 2010, so you have the 2010 Evo X Special Edition. Well, technically, you have the 2010 Mitsubishi Lancer Evolution GSR Special Edition. MR Special Edition. No, just never mind. If you watched the Evo IX Special Edition video, this is going to be a little bit shorter. If you haven't watched that video, or if you have more questions regarding Evo Xs, if you're looking to buy an Evo X, anything like that, definitely see my Evo 101 playlist for all the beginner and basic information and questions that I answer. All right, in today's video, we're going to cover 4 main topics of the Special Edition Evo X. That is going to be the history of the Special Edition, what makes the Special Edition actually special. Is there an MR Special Edition? I know there was a lot of confusion with the 9s on that, which I cleared up in the last video. And lastly, should you buy an Evo X Special Edition now in the year 2019, or really whenever that you're watching this video? So first part, the history of the Evo X Special Edition. If you watched my Evo IX Special Edition video, you know that I praised Mitsubishi, whether for intention or accident, coming up with a great car at the time. I say this because it reminds me of a time when I was in the 5th grade science class and I wasn't paying attention, and evidently my teacher knew this. He says, "What answer did I put for question whatever," or something? And my response to him was C, because as anybody who watched The Fresh Prince knows, you should always choose option C. The issue was that there were only 2 options on that question, A and B. Just completely wrong in my guess. And the reason I bring this up is because I feel like Mitsubishi saw the 9 SE and said, "That's good, let's do it again." And then they just completely missed the mark. Like, it's like, were you actually paying attention? Or did you just luck into you just guessed the right answer on the first time and you just thought you'd just guess again? I'm not really sure what happened here. I think the Evo X SE is, if you didn't know it already, like, you really start to see the issues that Mitsubishi's having as a company and the decisions that they're making. If the 9 SE was the high point, I think it kind of hit a high point, and then you had the 10s, which kept interest up, but then the SE really just was like the point where it started to go downhill from there. Point number 2, what did Mitsubishi deem special about the Evo X Special Edition? And the answer to that is nothing. At the time, in 2010, I don't know who in their right mind would think this is a good idea to purchase. So essentially, they took a similar formula, take good parts from an MR and put in a GSR, and it was good. But in the 10, they took like one part. It's the part that most people, we're not going to debate the SST versus the 5-speed, other than to say that there's some controversy around it. I happen to love the transmission. So they took this transmission that is in the MR and they put it in the GSR essentially, and said, okay, throw a badge on there, we're done. That's basically what they did. With the 9 SE, it had different wheels, it had MR suspension, the roof, all this other stuff. The 10, nah, we just put the transmission in. And they did all this for an MSRP of $36,000 and change, $36,500, which is more than a GSR. So, I mean, yeah, it makes sense. You pay more for a GSR, or you pay more for the SE over the GSR because you're getting the better transmission, but you're so close to MR territory, and I feel like dealers were going to be less inclined to negotiate on an SE as they were an MR. So I find it hard to believe that you wouldn't have been able to get an MR for the price of an SE. Point number 3, speaking of the MR, was there an MR SE? There was a lot of confusion with the 9s. People thinking there was an MR SE 9. There wasn't. With the 10, there's no confusion. There is no MR SE. So just no. There's Evo X GSR, Evo X SE, and Evo X MR in the US. That's it. They like to list the MR Touring as a separate trim. Whatever. It's just more stuff on an MR. Now, the 4th and final point, and we've gone through these first 3 pretty quick, and if you can't tell, I'm not a huge fan of the SE. When this car came out in 2010, I was wasn't really following the Evos as closely, but I was confused then just as I am now. That said, so in my previous Evo IX SE video, I mentioned that, yeah, back in 2006, absolutely you should have bought one of these. When it comes to the 10 SE, back in 2010, no, you should not have bought one of these. However, here in 29 and in the future, I could actually see why it could be a good value. First of all, they're not that well known, and they're not really that special. You know, they don't have all the special looks and everything, so they don't tend to carry a premium. You know, you may pay a little bit extra because of the transmission being a little bit more costly, but there's no SE price tax on this. If you're like, you know, I really want the SST, which again, I'm a fan of that transmission, and there's a lot of good reasons to have it, but you don't want to pay the MR premium, then yeah, I mean, you could totally get yourself an SST for less money. You don't have to deal with the leather. You know, if you're gonna like road course or autocross this or something where you want to actually have that transmission, then this is a great way to get one that's cheaper, because you're gonna end up ripping out all the MR heavyweight stuff anyways. So why not get a GSR with the transmission that you wanted in the first place? It's kind of like the Evo 8 IX thing in reverse. You know, if you actually want the MR transmission, because it's not a bad transmission. It's just a lot of people don't like it. I know why they don't like it, but they're being a little dramatic. All right, in closing, the Evo X SE was stupid. It never should have existed, really. That being said, because it does exist, if you find one, it may be a good buy for you now if you want the SST and you want to get one for a cheaper price. And you know, I did read somewhere where Mitsubishi apparently listed the weight differences, and not that they don't list the weight differences anyways, but they like made a point to make the difference when the SE came out, that it was lighter than an MR, which, I mean, everything's lighter than an MR. Maybe this was kind of their way of doing like an RS, because, you know, we didn't get an RS in the US. So here's the most stripped down Evo you can get, what they deem to be the better transmission. And like I said, if you want to do like some autocrossing or some road course racing, something like that, or maybe even drag racing, I don't know. Yeah, I mean, this could be a good option for you to get that transmission at a cheaper cost. So I'd like to think that was maybe more what their thought was. They maybe should have called it something else besides special edition. Or if they were going to do that, then strip everything out and just give us an RS. Finally, if you want an SST, like I've said a bunch of times already, this is a good way to get it for cheaper. And unlike the final edition, which we'll discuss in a later video, at least you get the Recaros. You know, I mean, unlike that stupid. And since I feel like this video is going pretty quick, I did want to throw in a little story here. Back in like 2000, I think, my mom bought a Windstar. And it was an SE, which no relation, by the way. They were talking. I was a kid, so I was just sitting there. But they were discussing why it was an SE. It had all these options at the time. It had like power doors, which was new at the time, that you could only get on the Limited or the SEL. Most of the options it had, you could only get on the Limited. But it didn't have leather. And by default, a Limited and an SEL, I think, had to have leather. What the dealer kind of came to the conclusion was that probably somebody messed up on the assembly line, put in non-leather seats into what was going to be a SEL or a Limited, and said, oh well, I guess it's an SE now. I kind of wonder if there's some sort of backstory to the SE edition. You know, did Mitsubishi over-order too many SSTs and knew they couldn't sell that many MRs or something? You know, was something else going on where they're like, you know, we can sell Evos, but we can't necessarily sell MRs. But we got all these extra MR transmissions because we had to order a MOQ, a minimum order quantity. Maybe we'll just slide some in there and call it special because we screwed up. I don't know. It's pretty much all I have to say on the Evo X Special Edition. If you haven't gotten the undertone of this video, let me summarize it real quick for you here. It was stupid, but in 2019, might be useful. If you have an Evo X Special Edition, definitely comment below. Let me know your thoughts. If you don't have one, but you have an opinion, which I'm sure you all do, definitely leave those below. If you have an opinion on the final edition that I briefly mentioned that's coming in a later video, I don't care. That being said, if you want your questions answered on a future Evo 101 video, leave those below. Instagram links for myself, Lotus, and Enzo. I'm gonna try to move this because, oh my gosh, they are passed out. We played ball this morning, so they're wiped out. I knew I was gonna batch these recordings, so I wanted them to be good and tired. Subscribe to follow along with the Evo questions and my own Evo. Like if that's your thing. Again, comment below with all your questions. We will see you on the next video. And Instagram links, I think I said for myself, Lotus and Enzo, below. See you guys on the next one.